it's not all bad news, Matt. I know you kept tabs on CES. What did you see there?
Yeah, so I mean, we've been talking about autonomous for what seems like probably a decade now, autonomous vehicles. But I know that I saw, that at CES that autonomous trucking is now making a big splash. So I think, it's interesting just because it seems like trucking is leading the way on this front now. They thought that maybe they would tackle it with the passenger vehicle space. Hey, you can have your own personal conveyance, have a few beers, get carted over to the game and back. You don't have to worry about it, that kind of thing. But I think we're so many years away from that, whereas maybe autonomous level, 4, 3, 4 in commercial vehicles is getting a lot closer, right? And so it's probably time that technology, we're in kind of this space. I'm thinking, we're probably doing a lot of overlapping things with these autonomous vehicle groups that they're trying to understand how carriers are, more efficiently trying to move product and do their jobs, and we're trying to do the same thing, right? And should we now be working hand in hand as this future starts to come into fruition? I know that you kind of worry about that because drivers are concerned that might start to impact, their opportunities. But I actually think it's just going to be an evolution of the driver role, right? And I think we've kind of talked about this too, but basically now a driver might be more the manager of a vehicle or a group of vehicles that are just kind of spitballing things here, right? Where they're not, the primary task isn't operating that vehicle every second that it's moving, but making sure that, the product's getting to where it's got to go, et cetera. So I think it's interesting. I think it's a good thing. It's good development over time here, but go ahead, Flint.
I agree with that. I agree with that sentiment, Matt. And I think if you think about, where this autonomous vehicle stuff is going, I think it actually gets rid of the bad parts of being a truck driver, like the time away from home, out on the road for 10 days, 7, 10 hours at a time of just keeping it in the right lane, going down the highway at 65 miles an hour. I think what you're going to see is kind of what you're saying, Matt. Like, one, the driver's job gets a lot easier if the truck can do some of this stuff on its own. But I still think we're a really long way off from turning an autonomous truck loose in an urban area to make pickups and deliveries. So I think what we're going to see is that the driver's job gets a lot easier. Perhaps more drivers get home every night, and the driver's actually doing higher value work every day than just holding the steering wheel, keeping it in the right.
Right. Yeah, it'll be a slow evolution. And like, dude, honestly, by all accounts, trucks are they're so stuck in the previous decade. Like, they don't have any like lane departure warning, not even assist, lane departure warning. Some of the newest ones do, but it's like they have very basic cruise control, not even adaptive cruise control. And by all accounts, it's nice to see that finally there's some advancement there. But I have a personal interest in autonomous trucks and cutting edge of technology. A quick side note: is it just me, or there's like way less going on at CES now? I used to be like a hardcore dude, CES is coming in the beginning of the year. This is so exciting, all the latest and greatest. But it seemed like this year was a little bit underreported, not as much activity. I know this is the first one post-COVID and whatnot in 2020, shutdowns and cancellations. So, Matt, did you can you say anything about that? Like, did you notice that it was a little bit slower in the general news cycle?
Yeah, I mean, I used to follow CES for the video game releases mostly. Now, not as much of a priority for me. So, I didn't. Yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting thought. I don't know if is technology slowing down? Are we running out of things to invent here? I don't know.
Right.
I know that's not true, but I'm just trying to roll with your thought there. I'm not sure. I really didn't do a deep dive into CES. I just think it's cool it's great that trucking now is leading the way. I mean, when I started in this industry, it was always kind of like, hey, we're stuck in the 60s and 70s, Smokey and the Bandit. That's like the vibe that I kind of got into this industry in. And now we're leading the way in so many different types of technologies, computer vision is one of the very first commercial applications. It's part of what TruckSpy does, right? And so computer vision, all sorts of things that are really leading the way in all sorts of industries in terms of commercial actual application of new technologies. So
Yeah, but
I think there's going to
necessity
be a
is the
big
mother of
opportunity.
invention, right? I
Yeah.
mean,
Right.
necessity is the mother of invention. So, like, if you look at this industry, there's been a lot of challenges over the last, let's call it a decade, right, Matt? So, I mean,
Right.
what you're saying is exactly right. Like, a lot of this, like, trucking is now kind of at the forefront of all this stuff because it kind of needs it, right?
Mm-hmm.
To keep being competitive and keep getting the goods delivered and keeping drivers safe and keeping the public safe and all of this stuff. So it's a really good thing.
Yeah,
Right.
I think everyone's they're noticing that trucking really is the backbone of the entire economy, and it's actually growing. That was the other interesting as part in the article is saying well over 70% now of all goods that are being transported are done in trucking, and that number keeps growing. So
Right.
you
Right.
know, autonomous
Yeah.
various levels of autonomous vehicles will help scale these operations up to meet the demand.
Right. And just to add to that, like I forget what podcast I heard it on. I think it was Andre Karpathy, who's like basically the godfather of autonomous vehicles. I think I watched him on a pod. He said like the federal government awarded a contract for self-driving military vehicles in 1996. That was when the first government awarded for self-driving vehicles on the battlefield in 1996. Yeah. So and because that award came out, essentially a bunch of companies started thinking like, oh, you know, it would be great to go into self-driving and autonomy. So it's certainly been well into 2 decades now that like autonomy has been in the works. But like you mentioned, Flint, it's like do I really need a self-driving personal vehicle? Like, no, I just care about just give me the cheapest vehicle that I can afford. Like, I don't really care. But in trucking, it's like you need it. It's like a driver does get drowsy after 6.5 hours of 65 miles an hour of just holding the wheel, because a lot of that middle road, a lot of those transit is just mundane, boring. So it does make sense on one hand that autonomous trucks are leading the path.
Yeah.
What
right.
I mean,
there's still going to be a human behind the wheel. I
right.
mean,
right.
for the next couple decades at least, right? So we're
right.
really just talking about. It's kind of like just no different now. It's becoming like this, like a commercial airline, right? I mean, the pilot's probably not every second trying to maintain the stabilization of that vehicle. It's very automated, right? It's very computer guided. So that's probably where commercial truck and commercial vehicles are going to go as well.
Right. And just to add to that, like I talked a little bit with an individual from Plus.ai. They're working on level 2 autonomy, which is like, fancy cruise control or like adaptive cruise control. And he explained, one of the guys there at Plus.ai, he explained that the main reason why level 4 is nowhere in the future is because many states already have legislation against level 4. So it's very unlikely we will have a driver out truck on the road anytime soon.